Let me get a sense of production in here to see who produces what. How many of you are fruit and vegetable specialty crop producers? How many of you are field crop producers of some type? How many of you have livestock? Wow, this is a good mix here. Let me talk about a couple issues. Some affect different segments of agriculture differently. And maybe let me start with immigration and labor quickly. That's a key issue for U.S. agriculture. We need 700 to 900,000 workers in agriculture, and I think all of us know that in spite of a 10+% unemployment rate in this country, we are not getting individuals to come out to the farms and to do farm work that live here. Seems to be a fact. No one wants to work that hard. And so we have to find individuals willing to do that work, and typically they come from south of the border or other countries. So we have a huge issue with what do we do for the future. With immigration reform is a big issue, and also what do we do to have a guest worker program that will satisfy the needs of American agriculture for the future. That's a huge political issue. We were encouraged by President Obama, saying both during the campaign and afterwards that he wants to address this. He wants to have immigration reform, and then of course a piece of that would be agricultural guest worker programs. Unfortunately, he hasn't moved forward with the Congress because the Congress is reticent to take up this issue. This is a huge political issue, if y'all haven't figured that out by now. And frankly, there are those, some of our friends, who would rather have this as a political issue than actually have a solution to the problem. And given that this election year is shaping up to be one that will be very dynamic, to say the least, given recent elections and the attitudes of the American public, I think it's going to be very difficult to get this resolved for the coming year. Long term, though, we're going to continue to work and see if we can have an adequate guest worker program that meets the needs of U.S. agriculture, that's there for the long term, and that frankly also deals with the situation we have with those that are here not properly documented that have been here for a long time. You know, it's the 12 million people that are in this country illegally that we need to figure out a solution to that. So it's a complicated issue, but at the end of the day, the solution has to involve us having an adequate guest worker program for the long term. Regulatory issues, and you know, there's a whole laundry list of things that those in Washington want to do to regulate U.S. agriculture. There are many who think they know best or know what's best for agriculture without understanding much about agriculture, the way regulations affect us. EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson, I met with her early on, pretty soon after she was appointed actually, and the one comment she made to me stands out. We had a good little conversation. She was willing to talk and willing to listen. But at the end she basically said, well, Bob, I don't want to regulate agriculture out of business, but, and here's the but, I will do whatever is necessary to protect the public health and safety of the citizens of the United States, which to me said right then that she was not going to worry about running us out of business, particularly. You know, whether you're talking about Clean Air Act regulations relative to greenhouse +gas emissions, which the EPA is going to take up, and which, by the way, for those of you producing livestock, we anticipate that regulatory effort would affect over 90+% of the livestock operations in this country due to the structure of the Clean Air Act. And we have Clean Water Act regulation. We have the Chesapeake Bay watershed right now where, in essence, Administrator Jackson has said, if we don't have enough authority to regulate it like we need to get more authority to regulate it the way we need to. And oh, by the way, this is going to be the model for watersheds across this country. Once again, none of this is good news for agriculture. And then we have things like the dust regulations, which impact agricultural operations, which are being put in place. And confined animal feeding, water quality regulations around confined animal feeding operations. And the list kind of goes on and on of the things that will be impacting us. And you know, once it hits one part of agriculture, and I'd say livestock is more susceptible to water quality regulations, but on the other hand, that ultimately will be applied to field crop operations. And oh, by the way, for those who grow feed grains, what happens to the livestock industry ought to be of great concern to you, because that's a primary market for your product. So we have a whole host of issues there. Trade issues, you know, agriculture in this country is successful because we can move the excess product that we produce into other countries. We need to continue to try to open up markets for our products. Right now, this administration has not been too forceful about trying to open up markets. That's something we'll have to deal with for the future. And let me get down to what I consider the kind of the big overarching future potential problem, and that's the fiscal situation we face in this country. The President's budget just released is anticipating a $1.6 trillion deficit in this next budget after the record $1.4 trillion deficit for this past year. I was at a county annual meeting in Texas in the fall, actually, and that was right after we found out about the $1.4 trillion deficit for that budget year. And I basically said, I don't know how much money that is. I mean, I can't count that high. And so I just kind of rhetorically asked, well, how much money is that? Does anybody know? And this little old lady, way in the back of the hall, shouted, too much. And that pretty much sums it up. That's just too much. The other side, our Republican friends, in many cases, haven't really come up with a solution, because the solution has to be specific about what are you going to do. And, you know, not taxing is certainly something our policy supports. That's fine. But then where are you going to cut spending? And that's the answers that you have a harder time coming by. And so in this election cycle that's coming up, you need to, in deciding who you're going to support for public office, get specific answers. Don't let them do the warm fuzzy about I love agriculture. You know, get them to tell you what they're going to do and the specific policies they're going to support, and then make your decision about who can best serve your interests. So that political involvement is very important. How many of you want to be in business and agriculture in the next 5 to 10 years? Most everybody. That's good. If you want that to happen, you've got to do a couple things. One is to be involved, like I just talked about. Get out there, put the face of the farmer out there to the consumer. There's a lot of misperceptions about modern production agriculture and what consumers believe. You have an opportunity to tell that story. You have an opportunity to be politically involved. In terms of this organization, you have an opportunity to go out and get membership, which is going to be important for the long-term health of our organization and the ability for us to implement the policies you want us to. So if you didn't miss all that, it means you got to get out there and do something. And so I know that y'all will. You're interested or you wouldn't be here. And so I encourage you to do that. So the best of luck to you as you move forward with your membership kickoff and move forward with working on the policies that are important to Michigan agriculture and U.S. agriculture for the rest of the year. Go out and get some membership, folks. Go out and be active for the rest of the year. And in this election season that's coming up, pay really close attention to the individuals that are seeking your vote, and be sure that they provide the right answers to the questions that you need to ask on behalf of yourselves and American agriculture before you give your support. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to a great day.
Appreciate it.